There comes a point in every life when human strength runs out. You've tried every thought. You've made all the calls, had all the conversations, done all the planning, but the weight doesn't move. You kneel down exhausted, not from the battle alone, but from carrying what was never yours to carry in the first place. That's the moment where surrender begins. True surrender is not a passive retreat. It is an intentional act of trust. It's a moment when the soul finally accepts that some things are above your reach, beyond your strength, and outside your control. In that place, something divine happens. Not the absence of struggle, but the arrival of peace in the midst of it. Most people misunderstand surrender. They equate it with quitting, weakness, giving up. But spiritual surrender is the exact opposite. It is strength perfected in humility. When you surrender, you're not saying, I give up. You're declaring, I give over. You release your limited perspective into the hands of the infinite. You shift the responsibility of results from your shoulders to the one who already knows the end from the beginning. You are not withdrawing from the fight. You are repositioning yourself in a place of alignment with a higher authority. Life becomes heavy because of what we try to control. The truth is, the more we attempt to manipulate outcomes, the more we disconnect from the divine flow of grace. Control feeds fear. It makes us anxious about tomorrow, makes us doubt the path, makes us cling to what is familiar even when it is broken. But surrender leads to rest. It doesn't mean you stop working. It means you stop worrying. You continue to move, but you no longer carry the anxiety of trying to determine what only God can decide. You walk with purpose, but your pace is fueled by peace, not panic. Surrender also allows space for miracles. The supernatural can't operate where human ego rules. When you hold tightly to your own plans, you make no room for divine intervention. But when you let go, truly let go, then the impossible becomes possible. Because now, heaven has room to move. You no longer stand in the way of your own breakthrough. It's only when you're empty of self that you can be filled with grace. That's when doors open that no man can shut. That's when the crooked places become straight. That's when the resources show up out of nowhere. The wisdom comes unannounced, and the help arrives just in time. This surrender is not a one-time event. It is a lifestyle. Each day brings new reasons to panic, new things to fear, new weights to carry. But those who have chosen surrender live differently. They wake up and hand it over. Again and again. They don't let yesterday's peace be today's answer. They know it must be fresh, renewed, reaffirmed. Just like manna in the wilderness, surrender must happen daily. Otherwise, the weight returns. Otherwise, control sneaks back in, disguised as responsibility. We must constantly check ourselves. Are we carrying this alone? Are we trusting the process? Are we moving in our strength or in His? Surrender also repositions your heart in alignment with divine wisdom. When your hands are too full of your own agenda, you can't receive what heaven is offering. You can't hold both fear and faith. You can't carry both doubt and destiny. You must choose what you will carry and what you will release. And the key to carrying peace is releasing control. There are battles you were never meant to fight. There are decisions you were never meant to face alone. There are outcomes that are better in the hands of the one who sees all things and knows all things. Even Jesus, facing the greatest agony of his life, prayed not for escape but for surrender. Not my will. That is the greatest model of power found in surrender. Not because he didn't feel the weight of it, but because he knew where the weight belonged. Even in pain, even in uncertainty, he trusted the divine plan. That level of surrender did not make him weak. It revealed the deepest level of strength the world has ever seen. There's also a freedom that comes with surrender. Freedom from the pressure of performance. Freedom from the lie that everything depends on you. Freedom from sleepless nights filled with what ifs and anxious thoughts. When you leave everything in God's hands, you stop wrestling with what is not yours to resolve. You don't abdicate responsibility. You redefine it. Your role is to obey, to trust, to believe. His role is to orchestrate, to align, to deliver. And when those roles stay in order, peace floods your heart. It also makes room for joy. How can you laugh when you're worried? How can you breathe deeply when you're always bracing for the next crisis? Surrender opens the door for joy, not because circumstances change instantly, but because the heart is no longer shackled to the illusion of control. Joy springs up not from perfect conditions, but from perfect trust. When your trust is rightly placed, your joy becomes untouchable. Circumstances may shift, people may leave, plans may fail, but when your heart is anchored in the certainty of divine guidance, your spirit remains steady. Surrender also humbles the soul in the most beautiful way. It reminds you that you are part of something much larger than yourself, that you don't have to have all the answers, that you're not the savior of your family, your business, your situation. You're a vessel, not the source. You're an instrument, not the composer. And that realization doesn't diminish you. It frees you. It allows you to serve with a full heart, love without fear, work with excellence, and sleep in peace, knowing that everything, absolutely everything, is already accounted for by the one whose hands you've placed it in. And the final beauty of surrender is this: it opens you up to intimacy with the divine. Because when your soul is quiet, when your heart is not rushing to fix, when your mind is not scrambling to strategize, you can hear the whisper. You can sense the presence. You can feel the nearness of the one who has always been waiting, not just to fix your problems, but to carry your heart. In surrender, you don't just release the burden. You receive the presence. You don't just let go of fear. You make space for faith to rise like a river within you, steady and unshakable. You step into a relationship where trust is not a theory, but a living experience of divine care. There is a sacred mystery in the way life unfolds. Much of what truly matters cannot be seen with the eyes or measured by the clock. The process of becoming, the journey of faith, the unfolding of destiny, these are not visible, linear paths that follow human logic. They are divine patterns, operating beneath the surface, beyond what we can calculate or predict. And to walk this path requires one essential posture: trust. Not in what is visible, but in what is working behind the veil. Trusting the unseen process is one of the highest forms of faith, because it demands that we let go of our obsession with evidence, and instead lean into divine assurance. We live in a world addicted to immediacy. If we don't see instant results, we question the process. If it doesn't look like progress, we assume we failed. But faith operates on an entirely different dimension. Faith understands that the most significant growth happens where no one sees it. The roots go down before the fruit comes up. The caterpillar cocoons in silence before it flies. The oak begins as an invisible seed beneath the soil. There is no applause in those stages, no headlines, no affirmation. Yet it is in those hidden places that destiny takes form. And if we are too impatient, if we judge the process too early, we will uproot what heaven is cultivating. The unseen process is not a delay. It is divine preparation. It is where strength is developed, character is shaped, vision is clarified. When you're in the middle of that process, it can feel like nothing is happening. Doors seem closed, prayers seem unanswered, silence seems unending. But that silence is not absence. It is activity. God often works in silence because He is forming something sacred. And sacred things are not rushed. Diamonds are not made in seconds. Wine does not mature overnight. Masterpieces are not painted in minutes. The process takes time, And what takes time is often of the highest value. To trust the unseen process is to believe that just because you can't see, it doesn't mean it isn't real. It means choosing to walk, even when you don't see the entire road. It means taking the next step with no spotlight, no crowd, no validation, just faith. It's easy to trust when the results are visible. It's another thing entirely to trust when all you have is a promise and silence. But that's where the most powerful faith is forged. Not in certainty, but in surrender. Not in proof, but in conviction. It is the kind of trust that says, I don't see how, but I still believe. I don't feel anything, but I still stand. I don't hear answers, but I still move forward. There's something refining about walking through the unseen. It strips away superficiality. It detoxes the soul from performance. It breaks the addiction to approval. It teaches you to be okay with walking alone, if that's what it takes to stay aligned with the truth. And when everything around you seems still, it is actually a deep spiritual cleansing, a divine training ground, where your spirit learns endurance, your heart learns stillness, and your mind learns discipline. You discover that real faith doesn't need to see the outcome to stay obedient. Real faith is loyal in the wilderness. It stays faithful when there's no forecast of rain. It keeps building the ark, even when no one else sees the storm coming. When you trust the unseen process, you also learn how to stop measuring progress by physical evidence. You begin to recognize a deeper kind of movement, a shift inside your soul, a whisper in your spirit, a quiet alignment of your heart with the divine will. You realize that the greatest transformations are internal before they are external. You stop asking, what's happening outside? And begin asking, what's growing inside of me? You become less obsessed with the destination and more committed to the journey. Because the process is not just about what you're going to get. It's about who you're becoming along the way. There's a humility that is born from trusting what you cannot control. You begin to accept that you are not the architect of your own life. You're a co-laborer with divine purpose, a vessel for a vision greater than your own. You no longer chase outcomes. You align yourself with obedience. You don't force the fruit. You tend the soil of your heart. You water with faith. You prune with discipline. And you wait, not passively, but expectantly. Because you know the process is active, even when invisible. You know the hands that formed galaxies are still forming your future. You know the one who painted sunsets is painting your tomorrow, stroke by stroke. Sometimes, the unseen process feels like being buried. Like your dreams are under the ground, forgotten. Like your calling is hidden, covered, sealed off. But remember this, seeds are buried too. And they are not dead. They are planted. What looks like burial is actually the beginning of breakthrough. The darkness around you is not your grave. It's your greenhouse. And in that dark, hidden place, God is breaking things open, preparing the way, softening the soil, rearranging the atmosphere. You may not see it now, but the bloom is coming. And when it comes, it will not be small. It will not be fragile. It will be the result of deep roots, tested faith, and a heart that dared to trust without seeing. There will be voices that try to discourage you in the unseen process. Some will say you're wasting time. Others will suggest you take shortcuts. But when you know the process is divine, you learn to ignore the noise. You learn to protect your focus. You stop chasing validation and start nurturing vision. You guard your heart, your time, your energy. You create space for stillness because you know that clarity comes not in chaos but in calm. You walk with quiet confidence, knowing that you are not behind. You are being prepared. Even when fear tries to creep in, you remind yourself of the promises. You declare truth over your feelings. You speak life over your waiting season. You remind your soul that God is not slow. He is strategic. That Delays are not denials. That the silence is not punishment, but positioning. You rehearse the faithfulness of the past to strengthen your confidence in the future. And you choose moment by moment to trust the unseen process, not because you understand it, but because you know the one who orchestrates it. There is a silent war that many fight daily, not with others, but within their own minds and hearts. The war of control. The human desire to manage, to dictate, to predict every detail of life is deeply ingrained. We plan, schedule, strategize, and maneuver in hopes of avoiding pain, disappointment, and uncertainty. But control, though it may feel safe, becomes a heavy chain. It offers the illusion of order, but in reality, it keeps us in a constant state of anxiety. Letting go of that control is one of the most powerful, liberating, and necessary steps toward true peace. Not a fleeting moment of calm, but a deep, enduring peace that settles the soul and quiets the storm within. Control is often born out of fear. The fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. We think that if we hold on tightly enough, we can prevent bad things from happening. We convince ourselves that every outcome depends on our effort, our knowledge, our vigilance. But that mindset traps us. It robs us of rest. It causes sleepless nights and frantic days. It makes us live in a perpetual state of alert, as though the entire world is waiting for us to hold it together. But the truth is, we were never designed to carry that kind of burden. Trying to control everything is not only exhausting, it's unsustainable. Letting go of control does not mean giving up responsibility. It doesn't mean apathy or laziness. It means understanding the difference between what is yours to carry and what is not. It means drawing the line between your effort and God's sovereignty. It means doing your part faithfully and trusting that the rest belongs to a greater power. When you let go, you create space for peace to flow in, for wisdom to speak, for divine guidance to take over. You remove the clutter of overthinking and allow clarity to settle. Peace is not the absence of problems, it's the presence of trust. When you try to manage every outcome, you are constantly reacting to fear. But when you trust, you are responding to faith. Faith says, even if I don't understand, I will rest. Faith says, even if I can't see the way forward, I will walk. Control keeps your fists clenched. Peace opens your hands. It's in that open-handed posture that life begins to flow again. Creativity returns. Joy reappears. Relationships deepen. When you're no longer trying to script the ending, you're finally able to live fully in the moment. There's a sacred rhythm in life that control disrupts. It's the rhythm of surrender and of listening and following. When you let go, you begin to hear the quiet whispers of intuition, the soft nudges of the spirit, the divine timing that cannot be forced or fabricated. But when you're trying to control everything, those whispers are drowned out by noise. Noise of doubt, noise of stress, noise of your own voice, trying to figure it all out. Letting go means becoming quiet enough to hear again, to feel again, to respond instead of react. Many people hold on to control because of past pain. They've been hurt, disappointed, betrayed, so they grip the reins of their life, trying to avoid that pain again. But holding on doesn't heal wounds. It only hardens the heart. Healing comes when you trust again. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable with life. When you say, I release my need to always know, to always manage, to always be right. That's when healing water flows through the cracks, softening what life tried to make hard. That's when peace replaces bitterness, and freedom replaces fear. There is also a beauty in the unexpected, the unplanned. But you'll never experience it if you're always trying to stick to your script. Letting go of control allows room for surprise, for grace, for divine interruptions. Sometimes, what you planned is far less than what was possible. But you'll never see that greater vision if you're too attached to your version. Peace is often found in the detour, not the destination. When you stop demanding that everything goes according to your timeline, you discover that joy can bloom in places you never imagined. Control often isolates. It makes us believe that we're the only ones who can do it right. That if we don't hold it together, everything will fall apart. But that's pride disguised as responsibility. Letting go reconnects us with people with purpose, with presence. It allows us to lean on others, to invite help, to be part of something bigger than ourselves. It teaches us that strength is not in solitary striving, but in shared surrender. That peace is not found at the top of the mountain, but in the hands that hold us as we climb. Letting go also reveals who you really are. When the layers of control fall away, the masks come off. You're no longer performing, pretending, or proving. You are simply being, authentically, vulnerably, beautifully. Peace is not a performance, it is a posture. A posture of trust, of faith, of openness. And in that place, you begin to live again. Not bound by pressure, not burdened by perfectionism, but alive in the flow of grace. You make decisions not out of fear, but out of alignment. You speak not to impress, but to express truth. You love not to be safe, but to be free. And perhaps the greatest irony is this: when you let go of control, you gain influence. Not manipulative power, but true spiritual authority. Because people are drawn to peace. They follow clarity. They are moved by authenticity. When you walk in peace, you become a lighthouse for others lost in the storm. Your calm becomes their comfort. Your surrender becomes their inspiration. You begin to lead not by domination, but by example. And that kind of leadership cannot be manufactured. It can only be lived. Letting go of control is not a one-time decision. It is a daily choice, a moment by moment surrender. Each time fear rises, you release. Each time anxiety grips you, you breathe and trust. Each time the unknown scares you, you remind yourself, I was never meant to carry it all. There is a greater hand guiding the journey. There is a purpose unfolding, even when I can't see it. There is a peace available, even when life is uncertain. And that peace doesn't come when you have it all figured out. It comes when you finally let go. Pain is something no one wants, yet everyone encounters. It's a common thread in the human story. It visits without invitation, stays longer than expected, and leaves marks that words cannot explain. There are moments when pain becomes so loud it drowns out hope, and situations so overwhelming that it seems as though the heart might never recover. But even in the most difficult seasons, pain is not the end. It is not random. It is not without reason. When seen through the eyes of faith, pain can become a portal to something greater, a deeper strength, a refined purpose, a divine transformation that could not happen any other way. His plan is always greater than your pain, even when the process doesn't make sense. When you're in pain, it's natural to ask why. Why did this happen? Why now? Why me? These questions don't make you weak. They make you human. But there's a higher question that shifts everything. Instead of asking why, start asking what. What is being formed in me through this pain? What is this breaking preparing me for? What am I being led to release, to learn to become? Because while pain may take something from you, it also gives. It gives you vision you didn't have before. It gives you compassion that only comes through suffering. It gives you depth, resilience, and an unshakable clarity that only the fire can birth. Pain strips away illusions. It reveals what's real. In the moments when all have is your breath and your faith, you realize how many things you were leaning on that were never strong enough to carry you. Pain exposes false attachments, shallow beliefs, and fragile foundations. But it also reveals your core. It brings you face to face with the truth of who you are and what you're made of. That's not something comfort ever does. Growth rarely happens in ease. Comfort may protect your pride, But pain refines your character. It chisels away the excess and brings out the gold that was buried underneath. There's a sacredness to pain that we often overlook. It becomes the place where you experience nearness of God in a way you never did before. In the silence of sorrow, you start to hear whispers you missed in the noise of success. In the ache of loss, you feel a presence that holds you tighter than any human arm could. The deepest encounters often happen in the darkest valleys. When life pushes you to the edge, it's not to destroy you, it's to strip away everything that cannot go with you to the next level. Pain becomes a divine pruning. Not because he enjoys your suffering, but because he is preparing you for something greater. Sometimes pain protects. You were headed in a direction that looked good, but would have led to destruction. You were clinging to something that appeared safe, but was keeping you stuck. So he allowed the pain to intervene, not to punish, but to redirect. What you saw as rejection was really protection. What felt like the end was really a beginning in disguise. Pain is often the wrapping paper of purpose. It's not what you expected, not what you wanted, but within it lies a gift. Until the tears have dried and the dust has settled. There are moments when pain makes you feel isolated, as if no one sees or understands what you're going through. But you're never alone. You're not abandoned. Heaven is not indifferent to your tears. Every tear is counted. Every sigh is recorded. There is not one moment of your suffering that goes unnoticed. In fact, some of the greatest works of God happen in the silent places of your soul. He doesn't need a spotlight to do a miracle. Often, his most powerful work is invisible, intimate, personal. While the world moves on, he sits with you. While others forget, he remembers. While others walk away, he stays. The pain might isolate you from people, but it will never separate you from the one who created you. In the process of walking through pain, there is also a healing that happens layer by layer. Not all healing is instant. Some healing comes in stages. Sometimes it's one breath at a time, one sunrise at a time, one conversation, one cry, one step forward. But every time you choose to believe again, to breathe again, to trust again, you are healing. And with every step, you are getting closer to the reason the pain was allowed. You may not see it now, but eventually the view will be different. The ashes will turn to beauty. The mourning will give way to dancing. The heaviness will lift, and in its place will be garments of praise. Even in pain, there's purpose unfolding. Sometimes, the very thing you thought would break you ends up building you. The struggle becomes your strength. The wound becomes your wisdom. The burden becomes your breakthrough. And once you pass through it, you become someone else's guide. You carry a light that others can follow. You become a living testimony that pain doesn't have the final word, that grace still flows, that healing still happens, that purpose still rises from the rubble. You may have walked through fire, but you don't smell like smoke. You came out stronger, wiser, softer. Not because the pain didn't hurt, but because the plan didn't stop. His plan is not always obvious in the pain, but it is always active. It's easy to assume that pain means the plan has failed, but often it means the plan has just begun. Because real purpose isn't born in perfection, it's born in pressure. Diamonds are not formed in comfort. They're formed in heat, in weight, in time. You are being formed into something rare, something radiant. And the same God who allows the fire also controls its temperature. He will not let it consume you. It is only allowed to refine you. And when it has done its work, you will emerge, not broken, but blessed. Not weaker, but wiser, not but ready. Not bitter, but better. Even when pain leaves scars, those scars can carry glory. They are not signs of failure, but evidence that you survived. And more than survived, you overcame. What once hurt you deeply now reminds you of how far you've come. What once silenced you now becomes your voice. What once felt like defeat now becomes your platform. You become living proof that pain can't stop purpose, that suffering can't cancel destiny, that what was meant to destroy, you can become the very thing that drives you into your calling. There is a rhythm to life that is not set by clocks or calendars, but by divine timing. It is a rhythm that does not always match the pace of human desire, and often it contradicts the urgency of our emotions. We are conditioned to want everything now. We want quick answers, immediate results, fast resolutions. But the divine does not operate according to our impatience. Instead, it unfolds with perfect precision, aligning circumstances, shaping hearts, and preparing moments in ways that are far beyond what we can comprehend. To move with this timing requires more than patience. It requires trust. Not just any trust, but divine trust. A trust that rests even when there is no sign. A trust that believes even when the answer is delayed. A trust that does not demand to know when, but remains faithful until. Waiting is one of the hardest things the soul can do. It tests our belief, stretches our faith, and exposes our motives. In the stillness of waiting, every fear has a chance to whisper. Doubts knock louder. The silence becomes louder than the words we once heard clearly. But it is in that silence that trust is refined. Divine timing is not simply about delay. It is about preparation. There are things that need to align, hearts that need to mature, doors that need to be carved, and opportunities that must be crafted with divine hands. If you rush it, you might step into something unripe. If you force it, you may walk through a door that was never yours. But when you trust the timing of the one who holds eternity, you learn to rest in the process. Divine trust is not passive. It doesn't mean sitting with folded arms, waiting for heaven to rain blessings. It is active surrender. It is faith in motion. It is continuing to show up, to believe, even when nothing around you seems to be changing. It is building the ark before the rain. It is gathering oil before the door opens. It is preparing even when you don't yet see a reason to. Because deep down, you know that your preparation is not wasted. It is seen. It is sacred. You are not just waiting for something to happen to you. Something is being worked out in you. When divine timing is at work, things often seem backwards. The ones who look ready are passed by. The doors that seem perfect remain shut. The moments you feel most prepared seem to be met with stillness. But trust in divine timing teaches you that delay is not a sign of denial. It is a setup for something greater. Sometimes, the reason for the wait is protection. You may not see the storm on the other side of that opportunity. You may not know the weight of responsibility you're being spared from. Divine timing is not just about blessing. It is also about shielding. And because you do not see all that is being orchestrated, your role is not to understand. It is to trust. This trust develops a deeper kind of maturity. It's the kind of maturity that no longer reacts to every closed door with panic. The kind that no longer questions your worth every time a plan changes. The kind that doesn't compare your journey to others who seem to be moving faster. Divine trust doesn't need to compete. It knows that purpose is not a race, that destiny is not scarce, that timing is not a punishment. What is meant for you cannot be taken from you, but it can be delayed if you refuse to wait for it. You must walk in alignment, not ahead of grace. Trusting divine timing also means letting go of your own timelines. Sometimes, the greatest barrier to your peace is the deadline you place on yourself. I should be married by now. I should be further in my career. I should have achieved more. But divine trust says, I am where I'm supposed to be. I am not late. I am not behind. I am in progress. It reframes delay as development. It shifts the focus from outward results to inward transformation. Because if the internal structure is not ready, the external blessing will collapse under the weight. Divine timing ensures that when it comes, you'll not only receive it, you'll be ready to carry it. There is also a beauty that comes in hindsight. What doesn't make sense in the moment often becomes crystal clear later. You look back and realize that the timing you once questioned was perfect, that the detour was necessary, that the heartbreak prepared your heart, that the silence sharpened your discernment, that the wilderness trained your soul. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was random. What you called delay, heaven called design. And the only thing that got you through that season was trust. Unshaken, undeterred, unwavering trust in a plan that was bigger than your pain and was wiser than your desire. This kind of trust is not fragile. It is not emotional. It is not seasonal. It is rooted. It is anchored in the character of the one who has never failed. You don't trust timing because you like to wait. You trust timing because you trust the one who sets it. You trust because he has proven himself faithful before, and you believe he will be faithful again. You trust because every time you tried to do it your way, it didn't work. You trust because when you release control, you gain peace. And in that peace, you become who you were created to be, free from panic, grounded in faith, walking in alignment with heaven. Divine timing also teaches surrender in the face of pressure. People may not understand your waiting season. They may push you to move faster, to take shortcuts, to force what isn't flowing. But when you are in tune with divine rhythm, you learn to say no with confidence. No to premature doors. No to anxious decisions. No to settling. You wait because you trust. You wait because you know that when the time is right, things will align effortlessly. Not without effort, but without striving. You will step into rooms that you were prepared for. You will meet people who are part of the plan. You will receive what fits, not what frustrates. You will walk through doors that don't just open. They stay open because they were timed by heaven, not pushed by human hands. There is no pressure in divine timing. There is only peace. And in that peace, you discover the strength to wait, the courage to believe, and the wisdom to discern. You stop measuring your life by milestones and start measuring it by alignment. You don't chase what's ahead of you. You attract what's assigned to you. And that shift transforms your life from one of stress to one of supernatural flow. You live with expectancy, not anxiety. You move with grace, not haste. You stand firm, not because you know everything, but because you trust the one who does. When life overwhelms, when paths are unclear, when burdens become too heavy to carry alone, there is one truth that never fails. Everything changes when you leave it in God's hands. Surrender is not about giving up. It's about giving over. It's about recognizing that your strength has limits, but His power does not. It's about understanding that control creates chaos, but trust brings peace. In the unseen moments, in the hidden seasons, in the painful chapters, His hand is still writing the story. The process may not always be visible. The timing may not align with your plans. And the pain may feel unbearable. But all of it is working together for something greater than you can imagine. His purpose is unfolding in the silence. His strength is being perfected in your weakness, and His timing is preparing what your heart is not yet ready to carry. Let go of fear, release the pressure, surrender the outcome, and trust that the same God who formed the stars is forming your future. What you place in His hands is never lost. It's just being transformed.